Organisers pleaded with A-League fans to use public transport, but the crowd was hardly overwhelming on the train to Sydney at midday. The grand final experience has cost most fans more than $100, leaving some to take drastic measures to support their team. After a short wait on the platform, the fans were soon leaving on a Jets train. Over at the team's home ground, thousands of fans boarded more than 50 buses to make their way to the football stadium.
It's going to be very, very interesting, and it's just once in a lifetime event, so we're all looking forward to it.
Grand final predictions were predictably one-sided.
I reckon we'll win 2-0.
Probably about 3-0.
Go the Jets, and I'm sure they'll win today. They'll make us proud.
As the convoy moved out, it was smooth sailing for the start of the journey south. Once on the freeway, spirits were high, but it was soon traffic gridlock as Central Coast fans joined the pilgrimage.
Thanks, Mel. Yes, the big day has finally arrived for both teams, but it's already been a huge day for fans in order just to get here. The Moore Park precinct here in Sydney abuzz with activity, to say the least. Besides the A-League decider here at the SFS, there's a one-day cricket international being played at the neighbouring SCG, but the football fans have been easy to spot. Yes, the Newcastle Jets looking to create history tonight, hoping to be the first team to bring back a national soccer crown to the Hunter region. While for the Central Coast, today's about redemption, trying to make up for that grand final loss here 2 years ago. All the action of the first half later in the bulletin in sport.
The fight to keep Catherine Hill Bay in its current state has taken a step up. For years, residents have fought the two proposed developments, one by Rose Group to build 600 homes, the other by Cole and Allied to construct 300 dwellings at the quiet seaside town.
To smother it with 900 new houses would just be sacrilege.
Today, the National Trust joined in their fight.
We're here 110% to save Catherine Hill Bay. If it can happen here in a conservation area, it can happen anywhere on the coastline. So this is a much bigger battle that we're fighting.
The state government is expected to decide upon the Rose Group development within weeks. Protesters today claimed that Planning Minister Frank Sartor may be influenced by political donations made by developers.
We run the risk of returning to the Askin days when ordinary people had no say in what was happening.
In response to the protest, Rose Group issued a statement saying the development did not diminish the area's heritage values, nor did it encroach on the existing village. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Needs a good delivery from the Korean. Didn't get one. Took of quite a few clubs. Grand final is going to go to the combustible Joel Song Jin Hyung. Bridge. Tipped. Time to measure the cross. Song went early. Korsnick went for the near post.
Had one thing on his mind as he collected that ball, shaped across it with his left foot. Cut back inside onto his right. He was fed well by Checkley. Plays it first time. Shapes across it. Comes back in. Song commits. He's going to try and squeeze this between Kovic and the near post.
Still serving a suspension in the NRL, the trial against Souths gave Ben Cross a chance to blow out the cobwebs, and he received plenty of attention from the opening whistle. With the boss still trying to decide on his first-grade lineup, everyone was keen to impress. Corey Patterson made a welcome return following several off-season operations and showed few signs of discomfort. The 5/8 position is expected to be hotly contested this season, and last night Marvin Caruana did his chances no harm with a confident display in the number 6. But an emerging star could soon prove to be a new fan favourite of the Red and Blue Army. Aku Uate was almost unstoppable on the wing, crossing several times in a breathtaking display of pace and power. The big winger also proved pretty handy in defence. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The final whistle, and Australia had a new number one side. On the same ground, their hometown neighbours, the Knights, won their first premiership. The Newcastle Jets lifted football's other great prize, the A-League trophy. They couldn't wait to show it off either, on a victory lap few thought possible at the start of the season.
You know, we've copped a lot of slack this year that we weren't going to be competitive, and we're going to finish 7th or 8th, and there it is.
With every winner comes a loser, but for Central Coast fans, this derby loss was particularly hard to swallow. Leaving the Jets to party in the manner champions do.
I just said to the boys that this is something that you'll live with for the rest of your life.
Players, though, were more keen to live for the moment. Desperate to return home and continue the party with fans. And this is what awaited them. Around 3,000 fans on hand for a welcome home party like few others. Midnight passed as players were cheered on one by one during a night few wanted to end. Coach and captain holding aloft the prize, which all Hunter football fans have been waiting an age to see.
I'm a Taree boy, and Newcastle's my home, and to see that tonight, yeah, it's unbelievable, mate.
The sight, vindication too for the millions of dollars poured into the club by owner Con Constantine.
When you're fighting with your heart, mate, no one can stop you, no one.
And it seems, nor the party. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Last night they lined the streets and spilled onto Adamstown Oval to welcome home their heroes. This Thursday, the people of Newcastle will get the chance to do it all again at a civic reception on the steps of City Hall.
We've looked at the opportunity of transferring it to Saturday, but the players won't be available, so we want to see them all together as a team. So Thursday has to be the day.
While the players battled it out on the pitch, up in the stands, the politicians talked turkey. Representatives from Newcastle, including the Lord Mayor, State Member Jody McKay and Member for Hunter Joel Fitzgibbon, all keen to promote the region and push the case for more funding for Energy Australia Stadium. Fitzgibbon even ducking out early to grab a seat on the Prime Minister's plane.
But what a fantastic result for Newcastle and Hunter Valley. Very pleased to have been here.
Here's more impetus to get Energy Australia Stadium finished. There's a work program there, and it's a good plan, and it only requires money. Now, there's work going on there now. I'd like to think we can accelerate that.
Back in Newcastle, the club's owner was basking in the glory. Con Constantine believes the Jets' grand final win is a major boost in the fight for a 40,000-seat stadium.
From now on, they're going to listen to us, and we're going to take it to the next level now. Sky's the limit.
The Jets will now represent the region in front of an audience of hundreds of millions after qualifying for the Asian Champions League, with Australia also making a push to host the 2018 Football World Cup. A high-quality stadium is now a necessity.
I understand there'll be 6 games, at least, 3 away and 3 home. So that will bring tremendous numbers.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Heath Ryan is busy preparing for the Olympics, but the ongoing cost of horse flu is never far from his mind and could even jeopardise his attempt to represent Australia in Beijing later this year because of the financial strain. He's outraged at Federal Agriculture Minister Tony Burke's new bill that would see the horse industry have to help fund any future outbreaks like EI through a levy.
If we haven't paid for it enough already, then, I think that's an enormous tragedy. Just not to even get the idea that there is so much suffering out there because a government department was gross negligent.
The bill will be debated by Parliament in March, but the findings of the Callanan inquiry into how horse flu entered Australia won't be released until April.
It does seem very arrogant to be having the debate before the Callanan inquiry findings have been tabled.
He says with many people still struggling with the impact of the flu, this could be the final straw.
There are lots and lots of little people, little Australians out there that are just being walked all over, have no industry representation whatsoever. They actually represent something like 80% of the horse industry.
And it's these people, Heath says, that will bear the lion's share of any levy. Penny Evans, NBN News.
It's cost National Parks and Wildlife $80,000 to fly in the material needed to build 10 steel and concrete bridges along a walking track between Bolton and Marmong points. They're replacing the track's timber structures, which have been repeatedly targeted by arsonists.
We don't seem to be able to curb the behaviour, so we thought we'd try and curb it with non-flammable materials that they can't break or steal or put into campfires.
Since the walking track was opened in 2001, it's twice been destroyed by fire. The first time was just a year after it opened, the second in late 2006, when arsonists are believed to have set 8 separate blazes under its timber bridges. And it's not only arsonists damaging the track and its surrounds. Vandals have covered every available surface with graffiti, costing both time and money to remove.
At least 50% of our maintenance time in this area would be as a result of vandalism.
Illegal behaviour has become so prolific throughout Lake Macquarie's national parks, the service is asking for public help to stop it.
The most effective ways of stopping vandalism and arson in these areas is for the people in the local community to keep their eyes peeled.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
With the score locked at 0-0 after 60 minutes, a defensive error proved to be the turning point. Playing his last game, Socceroo legend Tony Vidmar was robbed by the Jets' Mark Bridge before the young striker unleashed a shot worthy of a grand final winner.
I mean, it's every boy's dream to score in a grand final, to score a winning goal in a grand final.
The fans' reaction at the ground no different to venues across the Hunter. The Mariners soon called for backup, but their best chances continued to go begging. The game threatened to explode as players repeatedly clashed. Deep into stoppage time, a handball by the Jets' James Holland went unnoticed, sending Central Coast players into a frenzy. Mariners keeper Danny Vukovic could face severe disciplinary action after coming into contact with the referee during the protest. John Aloisi was also booked. Seconds later, the final whistle sparked wild celebrations. Andrew Durante was awarded the Joe Marston Medal as the best player on the park for his defensive effort.
Never in my wildest dreams did I ever expect to receive this award.
After accepting the trophy, the captain proved winners really are grinners.
I didn't really see it. I didn't see what happened, but I think there was maybe a little bit of handball, but oh well, here I am talking to you, talking about the win, so.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Strongly linked to Sydney FC for the past 2 months, Mark Bridge remains adamant no deal has been struck and neither he nor his teammates want to see him go.
I'm his agent, everything goes through me, all right?
Yeah, that's right, you can answer.
All right, what's the question?
Is Bridgie staying, Joe?
He's staying, definitely.
If only it was that easy.
A lot of rumours circulating about what he has and hasn't signed elsewhere. I've just asked him one simple thing, and that is if the gate's still open, we want to close it on our behalf, not someone else's behalf.
Man of the match, Andrew Durante, faces a similar predicament, chased heavily by Wellington.
Great club man, has come back from enormous adversity with 2 broken legs. So I'm going to have an interesting few days. That's all I'm going to say.
Your gut feeling?
Gut feeling is we'll hold most, but maybe not all.
Most likely to stay is hometown boy Stu Michalek, who privately pledged his allegiance to club administrators overnight after a match he'll never forget.
One of the first local boys to win an A-League medal for Newcastle. You know, I can't explain it. It means so much to me.
It was a sentiment echoed by a number of adopted Novocastrians.
And you know, this is a dream come true for me, and I love the Newcastle, and I love the Hunter. And
yeah, it's something that I'll cherish for a long time, and I'm so happy right now.
Winning a A-League title brings everyone together, and we'll be mates forever. And you know what? This is the greatest bunch of players I've ever played with.
Cheers.
We have to drink it?
Yeah.
Oh. Do you look at your watch and say, oh God, it's early?
Mr Orkopoulos' former office manager Gillian Snedden took the stand today. She told the court that in 2005, one of the minister's alleged victims contacted the office to make a complaint. Later, the teenage boy came to the office and told Ms Snedden, "I think Milton is grooming me." She said, "What do you mean, flirting with you?" "Well, he told me about giving a to the local delicatessen owner, and I walked in here one day and another man was pulling his pants up. But don't tell the police because I want to become a politician." Another Orkopoulos staffer, Lisa Warren, says she asked the boy, "Has Milton ever touched you physically in any way?" To which the boy replied no. The court also heard from another of the former Swansea MP's alleged victims, a young man who claims he smoked pot in the accused's car after Orkopoulos picked him up at a bus stop, and who says the former minister supplied him with hydroponic buds of marijuana from the boot of his car. The accused is contesting 34 child sex and drugs charges. The trial continues tomorrow. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's a scenario becoming all too familiar for firefighters, blazes breaking out in abandoned buildings. The fire brigade extinguished a fire in King Street last night, but this morning it reignited and crews were back to bring spot fires under control. While the building was well secured and boarded up, police say homeless people had been living inside, gaining access through the roof. Police believe the squatters may have started the fire by cooking on a makeshift kitchen, but the cause is still under investigation. Nearby business owner Mario Borelli is calling for urgent action.
It really doesn't matter how many times you board them up or how good you board them up, they're going to get in, and it's better off that the council give permission to these developers to demolish them and clear them out, and I think it'll be safe for everyone.
The burnt-out building is part of a larger site awaiting redevelopment between Hunter Street and King Street. Howard Shedden's business is right next door.
It's a reasonably regular occurrence. Every 3 months, 4 months or so,
there's either another break-in, there's another fire, there's some activity in there. It's an ongoing thing.
The vandalism is a constant frustration, but the fires are now a bigger concern.
Yes, we keep our fire insurance right up to date.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. The June 8 flood was devastating enough for hundreds of people, with the water and everything in it rising rapidly in homes. And while that was tough, some are still waiting for repairs to be finished, or even worse, waiting for work to start. Among them, Christian Booth from Merriweather. The roof of his unit block blew off, causing extensive damage inside.
So we're probably still looking, 2 to 3 months before we'll be moving back in, and that would probably be a best case scenario.
He's now on to his third builder. Thankfully, this one has started work.
What we found with the other ones was they just kept screaming out for more money to do the jobs, but weren't actually doing the work. They were just saying we need more money and sitting on their hands.
In Hamilton North, Kathy Smith and her husband have just moved back home, but are still living without a bathroom, using the laundry tub instead due to insurance issues. She and neighbour Judy Gresham are now standing up for those without a voice who are still struggling with insurance companies.
In the last 8 months, I've heard hundreds of stories about things going wrong with insurance companies, people not being listened to.
The ladies are doing a letterbox drop and organising a public meeting at Hamilton North Bowling Club for next Wednesday night.
But we want to hear what everyone's got to say and see whether together we can't actually get the insurance companies to hear that it's not right, it's not good.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. The week began badly and has quickly got worse for the Mariners. At yesterday's Mad Monday celebrations, players dressed up, but Andre Gumprecht's choice of attire was considered just mad. Resembling Adolf Hitler, he's one of two players that drew criticism at a time the club could well do without the extra attention.
On behalf of the players, if any groups were offended by their dress yesterday, the club and the players apologise and reiterate that no such offence was intended.
The club chairman is already being forced to defend his players' actions during the grand final itself, with the FFA looking to sanction the club for player misconduct, none more so than goalkeeper Denny Vukovic. Sent off for slapping referee Mark Shields' hand in frustration near the game's end, he's now facing a 9-month suspension, with a further 6 months suspended.
We can say that Danny deeply regrets his actions. I can also say that he apologised to the referee immediately after the game verbally, and today he has sent a formal written apology to the referee.
Set to appeal the severity of the charge, it's still unclear if the ban extends to national representation. He's already been withdrawn from the Olyroos squad, which leaves tomorrow to play Mexico, with the 22-year-old's Olympic dream now also at major risk.
You know, the kid is totally shattered. He's totally out of character for Danny. He's big enough to, say that he probably did the wrong thing.
Mark Bridge says he wants to stay in Newcastle and teammates don't want him to go, but NBN can reveal there are 60,000 reasons why the grand final hero will be heading to Sydney FC next season. It's understood that's effectively the difference in dollars from what they've offered him in comparison to the Jets. Although the gap is said to be even greater for man of the match Andrew Durante and his offer from Wellington, the club hasn't given up hope of retaining him. However, it's Stu Michalek who's now the Jets' #1 priority signing.
Great ambassador, and probably will become, after Craig Johnston and potentially past Craig Johnston, as probably the finest export out of this part of the world, so we need to keep him.
Player turnover at the season's end is par for the course in modern-day sport, but with club owner Con Constantine refusing to use FFA-approved third-party sponsorships worth an extra $450,000 to clubs, leading players at Newcastle are becoming easier to pick off by rival clubs. It's hard to measure the rise in support the club has won along with the title, but they've established a dedicated fan base both locally and from afar, while the Jets continue to build themselves on a similar foothold to that of the Newcastle Knights.
I think that if rugby league people and AFL people are being perfectly honest, but particularly rugby league people, particularly Newcastle rugby league people, look out, football's coming to get you.
That's what I'll be pushing for at the moment, round 3, but obviously I have to wait to see what the surgeon says when he goes in and has a look. There might be more damage, I might get lucky, there might be less.
Fitted with a police listening device, the exchange between Milton Orkopoulos and the second of his alleged victims was recorded at the Pacific Highway office in September 2006. It came after the man, who can't be identified, decided to tell people about alleged sex acts and drug activity he claims he engaged in with Orkopoulos over a 9-year period. During the recording, alleged victim 2 is heard to say to the then Swansea MP, "I was only 15, mate," referring to his age when their relationship started. Orkopoulos replied, "I wasn't elected until 1999. I remember when I met you, I was a Member of Parliament. We did not meet until you were 17 or 18. Later in the conversation, he's heard to say, "You've got nothing on me. What we did was not illegal. The only issue is how you deal with the police. Tell them you were wrong about your age."
During today's proceedings, the witness was cross-examined by Orkopoulos' barrister John Fitzgerald. Mr Fitzgerald put it to the man that the only reason he'd had contact with his client was because the Swansea MP was prepared to assist him in gaining an apprenticeship, a suggestion the alleged victim denied. Gary Blair, NBN News.
QantasLink will cease all flights out of Newcastle from March the 10th, but the carrier claims it's only a temporary arrangement until more pilots can be trained, with services to resume at the end of June. The problem stems from the rapid expansion of the industry, and airline insiders say some carriers have been busy poaching flight officers from other airlines to keep their schedules flowing.
There is a kind of food chain in terms of the pilots. They learn their skills at a regional level and then they go further into aviation, onto the bigger equipment of the Boeing 737, the A320s, onto Virgin Blue and Jetstar Qantas. And there's just not enough people coming into the lower ranks at the moment to keep everything moving.
QantasLink's pull-out is a win for Newcastle-based airline Aero Pelican, which will take on over 1,000 advanced bookings on the Sydney route and will step up its service to 2 return flights from Newcastle to Sydney each day. The Newcastle to Melbourne and Brisbane routes will continue to be serviced between Jetstar, Virgin Blue and Tiger Airways. Paul Lobb, NBN News. If you believe the signs, the people of Madawi aren't happy. They love the quiet life and they love their big blocks of land. But with the suburb earmarked in the Lower Hunter strategy as a major growth centre, the council is looking at a plan to rezone land for smaller blocks to make room for more houses in the future. So with the issue being a sensitive one at the moment, last night's council meeting was somewhat of an aggravation. A group of locals is trying to stop a developer from opening up 1,300 housing lots just north of the town, and they tried to have the project excluded from the council's planning blueprint, which was up for discussion.
It's a bit premature to be including that parcel of land. We certainly don't have the infrastructure to cope with that sort of increased development in Madawi.
But Councillor Josh Hodges believes that if the subdivision isn't handled at a local level, it'll be taken over by the state government.
The Bildev land is a state significant development, and Bildev could go to Frank Sartor, the State Minister for Planning, and have Frank Sartor be the sole authority on deciding whether this development should go ahead. I don't believe that should be the case. I think the people of Port Stephens should decide.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's been a man's domain for decades, and even now only 8 of 185 rescue paramedics in New South Wales are female. 2 of them are based in Newcastle. Beth Allen and Melissa Price are trailblazers, showing they have what it takes to match it with the boys.
It's a whole lot of fun. It's a whole lot of fun, and some of the reactions you get when you pull up in this big truck and 2 girls get out is quite interesting.
It's a physically gruelling job, using the jaws of life, abseiling and rescuing those in trouble. But these girls are up for any challenge.
Sometimes we have to think a little bit more laterally. We don't have the same physical strength as men, and that's just biological. So sometimes it's more about the technique rather than the actual strength.
They say it's a rewarding occupation with plenty of variety, not to mention danger. Melissa has had to treat drug overdose victims in derelict buildings.
It's an excellent job, always exciting. You never know what you're going to get when you turn up for work, and you always get that benefit in the job that you're there to help people.
They hope they won't be the only female crew in the state for too much longer, encouraging others to take up the challenge. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The party rolls on for the Jets. 3 days since they won the A-League trophy, they were at it again, with Joel Griffiths the centre of attention today. Along with his premiership medal, a Socceroo recall and golden boot for most goals this season, it rounds out the perfect year.
This is like the icing on the cake, and the grand final, that's what we strive for at the beginning of the season, that's our goal. But to get awards like the Golden Boot and the Johnny Warren Medal is just, tops it off.
Gary Van Egmond didn't miss out either, named Coach of the Year.
The old adage that you're only as good as the cattle you have is very, very true, and luckily we've got tremendous cattle at Newcastle.
It didn't stop there. The team also recognised with the Fair Play Award. Tomorrow, the premiership-winning team will be recognised with a civic reception back in Newcastle. But the celebrations could be soured for some should the team be split up, with various contract negotiations dragging on.
We were to lose those players for like a couple of $1,000s here and there, then I'll be very disappointed.
It doesn't stop there for Griffiths, who heads to play in Japan during the off-season. Jim Callanan, NBN News. It may look a little bizarre, but this is Newcastle's heritage playing strip. It was enough to make Wes Nguama think he'd step back in time too, with the colours more dragons-like than knights, symbolising the jumpers worn by Newcastle's original team back in 1908. It will be worn by the current side in round 6 as the NRL recognises Rugby League centenary. Most players are more worried about the immediate future and Saturday night's trial against the Sharks, where Chris Bailey and Jared Mullen get first shot at the halves combination, the latter at halfback.
And if he's up for the job at 7 and wants to do that and shows us that he can do it at the right level, mate, then we've got, we've got a blend then of guys who can cover us for the entire season.
Still up in the air. I had a meeting with him the other day, and he still said, I said, do you know whether I'm going to be playing half or 5'8"? And he said, to be honest, he's really got no idea. It's just how I suppose Walshy and Scotty Giro and Bales perform this weekend.
Fullback Kurt Gidley will make his first appearance for the club this season on Saturday night at Cessnock. Chased by rival clubs, including South Sydney, past this year, he says no deal has been struck to see him remain in Newcastle just yet, despite talk of a 4-year deal.
I don't want to drag it into the start of the season. If I could help it, obviously, if I could sort something out before then, it'd be nice.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. "2008 was meant to be the year of the comeback for Josh Ross, but late yesterday his career was again turned on its head. Instead of attending his final training session ahead of the National Championships, the 26-year-old shocked his coach with a phone call saying he's withdrawing from the event.
Even when I said about having the break and sort of coming back towards World Champs, he said even thinking about that, he said it doesn't sort of stir any emotions and that, so he sort of got a long way to go, I think, before he makes his mind up where he's going to come back and run.
It's been a turbulent 12 months for Ross, who switched coaches several times, suffered injury and now a lack of desire. It's left the dual stall gift winner and 4-time Australian champion now considering retirement.
Hunger-wise and desire, said he just wasn't there. He ran on Saturday and said halfway through the race he just was wondering why he was there.
Unable to speak on camera today, Ross did say he'll take weeks, possibly months, before making a final decision. Meanwhile, former Gosforth sprinter Daniel Burgess, who finished 4th recently against the Safa Pal, has also been forced out of the Nationals at the weekend, suffering a hamstring injury.
If you couldn't see it, you certainly would have heard it. The storm struck Newcastle at midday, unloading late summer rain.
A line of thunderstorms has moved right across the entire state of New South Wales, but the city of Newcastle had one slow-moving storm cell which recorded 33 millimetres in around half an hour.
By 1 o'clock, that figure doubled, the downpour submerging intersections and closing shopping centres. Cars were left flooded at Westfield Katara during the lunchtime rush.
Main arcades are both now.
Inside the newly refurbished complex, the ceiling of a jeweller's shop gave way.
Totally collapsed and the water was like a water feature.
In Newcastle's inner western suburbs, memories of the June 2007 long weekend came flooding back, with overwhelmed drains spilling into nearby yards.
I think in all fairness to the likes of us people, council have to do something.
A double blow for the owners of this house, with building products being used to renovate after last year's June storm now ruined.
Yeah, we've had a few close calls, and then the June one, and then just now. So yeah, there's definitely a drainage issue.
At one stage, the water from Sticks Creek was so high it blocked the road behind me. There were even reports of children using the canal to bodyboard. Thankfully, their stupidity was short-lived, much like the storm itself. It lasted an hour at most, but left behind another clean-up, something Newcastle is sadly becoming accustomed to. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
They're the toast of Australian football, and today the party continued for the Newcastle Jets. Despite an afternoon that saw flooding rain in parts of the Hunter, underneath those umbrellas, the city centre was a sea of gold as it congratulated its team. The Air Force sent their own jets to contribute to the celebration. In a sight familiar to the fans, these locally based fighter planes flew over the crowd in the same formation as the A-League club's logo. Earlier, the players were treated to a private ceremony where the team's achievement was formally recognised by the council. Traditionally a rugby league region, it seems football has finally arrived.
It's a little bit overwhelming, but we've enjoyed the week, and it seems like everything's just going a little bit too fast.
But the celebrations proved bittersweet for the grand final man of the match, Andrew Durante, who this afternoon confirmed he'll leave the Jets to play for Wellington next season.
I guess it's a good way to leave, go out with a title and with a man of the match award, and I couldn't ask for a better way to move on from this club.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The parents of a young man told the court how their son's behaviour had changed after he began a relationship with the former Aboriginal Affairs Minister. The boy's father told the court his attitude went downhill. He wouldn't listen to what we'd say. He said his son had begun using drugs and that he stole stuff from the house, a TV, an Xbox, even his father's watch. The father also said that Okopoulos had mailed presents to the house from overseas and had given his son an expensive bottle of wine to give to his father as a birthday present. The boy's mother also took the stand, frequently sobbing. She recalled how things had started to go bad for her son, and if we had issues, we couldn't talk to him about it. A mother knows. Federal member for Shortland Jill Hall gave evidence about her time as state member for Swansea when she employed Okopoulos as an electorate officer and when he used to borrow the officer's car to run errands. The trial resumes on Monday. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
According to the Salvation Army, drug abuse is an escalating problem across Lake Macquarie and Newcastle, an addiction to ice, speed, heroin and marijuana causing the increase.
Extremely bad. I've just recently been told that there's children as young as 11-year-old being sold it on the streets in our local area.
And it's not only the users' lives that drugs are affecting, with their family members also subjected to numerous hardships, as well as emotional and at times physical trauma.
Isolation and depression are major things, and not only the person in addiction suffers from that, but again the children and the family as well.
The organisation is now preparing to launch a unique service to support the families of men like these at the Lake Macquarie Recovery Centre who are dealing with addiction. It will offer their partners, parents and siblings the opportunity to share their experiences during therapy sessions. According to the Salvos, addicts' family members are at high risk of becoming addicts themselves.
Addictive behaviours, naturally do follow a trait in the families, and they are more prone to it if there, has been parents or siblings that have had it.
Public information sessions on the program will be held next month. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Wool growers Tim Robinson and Will McClenaghan of Armidale joined forces only 3 years ago, and though usually modest men, today's success saw them keen for a yarn.
We had a fantastic sale, topped the market. The market is very strong today for most superfine wools, so fantastic day.
Their ultrafine brand Angel Fleece is amongst the softest and lightest wool in the country, measuring just 13 microns. From fibre to fashion, this clip is off to Italy to be crafted into luxury suits worth $15,000. The high prices achieved in the selling rooms, the result of agents working intensely to seal the best deal for their overseas buyers. The Europeans the keenest to get their hands on Australian wool.
They've been very strong in the super fines from 18.5 microns and finer, and they've purchased roughly about 50% of the catalogue for the week.
However, the rise in the value of the Australian dollar to the 94 US cent mark did affect broader micron and less valuable wool produced by growers in drought-ravaged areas of the state.
Those wools that just lacking that style and weaker tensile strength, so there's more drought-affected wools, they're the wools that have come under pressure.
Lucy Wilson, NBN News.
The trophy was in safe hands today, but Gary Van Egmond could have a tough time retaining it. Andrew Durante will cross the Tasman, becoming the team's first high-profile departure.
I made my decision last night. I had my final meeting with the club yesterday and, it was a little bit disheartening.
Keeping local boy Stu Mishalik now top priority.
Yeah, I definitely love to stay here and try and make this happen again.
Mishalik put his recent absence from Olyroos training down to a mix-up in the hectic days after the grand final. He'll speak to Graham Arnold about his national team future when the team returns from the US.
I just feel really flat, maybe a bit burnt out, that sort of thing, and just felt like I needed a break.
Meanwhile, Joel Griffiths flies to Japan tomorrow to start his off-season contract.
I haven't gone for a run since Sunday, so I'll be pretty dusty and but as I said, looking forward to a new challenge.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Unless I can get a TKO or something like that, I don't think either of us are going to go down too easy, and it should be a hard fight.
It was anything but a lively exit for the Rob Hosking trained pacer and two-time Newcastle harness horse of the year.
Probably our best hope of ever going through to Grand Circuit Company, and to have to put him down is just a tragedy.
The equine influenza death of the 4-year-old, which was being groomed for life as a sire, has devastated the Maitland stable, robbing it and the harness racing scene of a star.
He was head and shoulders above anything I've ever had, yeah.
What makes the death even worse is that vaccinations were sought last September, on the same day thoroughbreds were injected at Broadmeadow.
It fell on deaf ears. I couldn't get anyone to respond, and as it's turned out, it's been disastrous for us.
Out of lively exit's shadow, though, from the same stable is Dash of Class. He'll challenge for favouritism in Saturday night's feature event, billed as the Paceway's big return to racing. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
John Levick has been playing croquet for 23 years and now he's at the top of his game. A state champion, he's packing up his mallet and heading to South Africa this weekend to represent Australia in golf croquet.
It's been an honour to be picked to play for your country and I'm really thrilled about it.
Since his selection in the World Championships, John's been training hard, honing his hand-eye coordination and ball skills at his home club in Newcastle.
I play Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday for a minimum of about 4 hours and then doing a practice a couple of times a week for a couple of hours.
It's the trip of a lifetime. He'll be mixing it with the world's best, including players from Egypt who have won the World Championships for the last 5 years in a row. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
For many residents, the latest deluge revived horrific memories of the June 2007 floods as stormwater again encroached on homes.
We continuously watched it, and if it had kept going, we were getting in our cars and just hightailing it.
We're getting old, we just can't put up much more of it.
King Street Hotel, just one business flooded.
It kind of puts a lot of businesses under a bit of pressure as far as being able to continue trading, etc., whilst having to put up with this kind of stuff.
Newcastle Council and Hunter Water's drainage system is being blamed despite being under repair.
Council has more than doubled the amount of money it's spending on major drainage in this budget, in the current budget. So we're certainly working on the issue.
The benefits this $100,000 station on wheels is expected to deliver Newcastle sounds like an echo of the outcomes that Premier promised from a crime crackdown announced nearly 12 months ago.
Targeting hotspots, cracking down on antisocial behaviour.
Plenty would argue those outcomes are yet to be delivered, with serious late-night assaults like that on 19-year-old Kurt Moroney still occurring. Not that the Premier was willing to concede defeat in the battle to reduce late-night alcohol-fuelled crime.
It's a reminder that the fight against this sort of viciousness never ends.
The mobile station handed to officers this afternoon will help police maintain a high visibility throughout the city. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Reinforce the messages about talking to people they don't know, the old strangers, etc., but basically anyone they don't know. If they're playing anywhere, try and make sure they're with other people.
It's a team brimming with fresh faces, each with their own style, and trials provide the platform to have a go at something new.
We've got a few sets to try, a few different ones which we're excited about. We're haven't got them bedded down proper, but we'd like to think we can get close to that by the start of the season.
Illness and injury have kept the likes of Kurt Gidley and Steve Simpson out of the mix so far, and for the latter, it will be every bit the trial moving into lock.
Yeah, a new challenge for me, I suppose. Out on the edge here, I suppose you're sort of stuck in the one place where this way I can sort of move around a bit.
Gidley will play his first game of the year too, and for him the season starts tomorrow night.
I'm always competitive, whether it's a game of table tennis or a game of footy, mate. So, I'll be out there to play as hard as I can and enjoy the game.
Adam McIlwright, NBN News. The first events of the State Age Championships fell on the last day of summer in what will be a busy 10 days at Blacksmiths Beach, finishing with the Opens. Although overall champions are nowhere near crowned, it's already proving a winner for the Swansea Belmont Club. The event expected to pump some $7 million into the city of Lake Macquarie. Some great news for Surfest today, with the event securing further financial support a month out from the 4-star World Qualifying Series tournament.
It allows us, I guess, not to relax, but to go forward positively and be confident knowing that we've got that backing from not only the government but the local community.
And in racing, the Darren Smith-trained Court Command returns to the track tomorrow at Randwick, having recovered from a bout of horse flu.